In 1950, Hendricks Army Airfield was converted into a motorsports facility, and in the ensuing 71 years, many of sports car racing's most famous chapters were written at the famed Sebring International Raceway. Now, for the first time since 2009, the legendary track plays host to GT3 sprint racing with the return of the Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS. Hello, greetings from Central Florida. My name is Ryan Marine. Calvin Fish joins me in the commentary booth, and down in the pit lane is Amanda Busick. Beautiful track, beautiful day, and we're about to turn 14 GT3 cars loose because, late developing story, we are down one of the entries we were expecting to factor in, not just to the race, but at least in the conversation for the championship.
Yeah, it was always going to be a stretch for the 96 Turner Motorsport BMW M6 of Robbie Foley and Michael Dinan to catch the 3-car from Capex Racing, the Caldarelli Pepper car. But unfortunately, they had an incident in qualifying this morning for Michael Dinan, so they're not going to be starting this race. There's some spare parts that they don't have on site. They're trying to get some stuff flown in so they can actually start the race tomorrow. So that eliminates them from the championship chase, and it's still conceivable for that 3-car with a very strong result here today to seal the deal over their teammates, and an outside shot still remains with the number 33 Windward Racing Mercedes AMG car.
Plenty of permutations up for grabs. We'll do our best to keep you up to date on those throughout the course of this 90-minute race. Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS, is, of course, part of a global championship for GT3 manufacturers, the Fanatec GT World Challenge. These are the brands that are taking part this season, scoring points towards this championship across the different classes in series racing in North America, in Australia, as well as in Europe. This has become a proving ground for manufacturers worldwide and testing their customer racing arms against one another throughout the course of this 2021 season. As you can see, it's been a great year for Mercedes AMG. Lamborghini very much nipping at their heels, and Audi Sport in the mix as well. These are the brands, though, and their respective results to this point in the 2021 Fanatec GT World Challenge season. Let's go down to the pit lane. Amanda Busick, the third member of the pit lane, is standing by.
Well, as you guys gave the update just now on the 96 BMW, what you don't want to see with 4 races to go left in this Fanatec GT World Challenge powered by AWS season is an empty pit box. Well, on the cooldown lap for Michael Dinan in turn 5, he lost control. There was damage to the right front that actually ended up damaging the front suspension and the rear suspension. And Cal, as you alluded to, they're putting a team member on a flight in Massachusetts to bring parts down that they need here for the race tomorrow. They're going to effort that all night to make sure that happens. And on that note, though, we do have a new entry in the Pro class that will look to at least push that Lamborghini another day or so. That is the entry from TR3 of Giacomo Altoe and Dennis Lind. I spoke with Dennis before the race, and all smiles. There's a lot of confidence exuding from that team as they look to compete with all of the Pro classes on this track here today.
Thanks, Amanda. Yes, it's been a good weekend so far for TR3, making the step up to the Pro class. You look at their results in a couple of practice sessions, and they've been there amongst the fastest. This, though, was from qualifying earlier today. Problems, as you can see, to the right front of the Turner Motorsport BMW M6 GT3.
Yeah, it's a strange one, and I think the team is still trying to identify if there may have been a technical issue with the race car that caused Michael to go off there. He's not one for making mistakes, so big hit to them. They've had a solid season, and we're trying to keep this championship open all the way to the Indianapolis rounds in a couple of weeks, but it's not to be. They're trying to dust themselves off. They've got some parts that are trying to be flown in here this afternoon to make the race here tomorrow.
Back to the TR3 story, though. This is not a team that is new, but they've been running in the Pro-Am category all season long with a bunch of different drivers at various times. This is the car right here, but this is their first chance to step up and really test themselves with a couple of top-flight drivers. Giacomo Altoe has been in the car for the bulk of the season, had one conflict that forced him to miss the VIR round where he was replaced by Sandy Mitchell. But to throw Dennis Lind into the mix, he's the points leader in the GT3 class in British GT, a ton of experience racing Lamborghinis, former factory driver for the brand, and he's been up to speed immediately here in Sebring.
He has. They were very fast here yesterday in the practice sessions. Unfortunately, the track changed a little bit. By that, not the configuration, but the amount of grip that the track was providing in the early qualifying sessions here today. Caught the TR3 team out a little bit. They're scrambling a bit for grip. Still qualified quite well, but to Amanda's point, they could be the spoiler for the 3 car. If they can take the maximum points away from today's race, that may make it a little bit harder for the 3 car to clinch here today.
At the front of the pit lane, you see the number 61 AF Corsa Ferrari. That's been the M-Class competitor all season long. We have a new team in the paddock this weekend, Triarsi Competizione, a team that has extensive experience racing in Ferrari Challenge, but stepping up to GT3 racing at the pro level for the first time, and they were pretty impressive with Charlie Scardina, his first pro race since 2007, and he qualified 7th right in the middle of this field.
Yeah, and to put it in perspective, a couple of seconds would have put him on the front row. Do you know what I mean? So that is a really impressive debut for that team. They've not run at this level at all, and certainly for both drivers, been out of the cockpit for quite some time. So that's a really impressive performance. They've already got a big smile on their face, and they're just going to keep learning. You'd think they'd get stronger as the weekend progresses.
And with the misfortune for Turner, they start, in fact, one position higher than they qualified. They'll roll off in 6th. This is an iconic motorsports venue, Sebring International Raceway. Let's go on board this car with Jan Halen and our Porsche track preview.
Hi, my name is Jan Halen with the Porsche track preview here at Sebring International Raceway. Onto the front stretch here at a bumpy Sebring racetrack. Into turn 1, 5th gear, high-speed corner, quick step on the brake, 4th gear, back to power. Using up all that track here on the exit. Trying not to drop a wheel in the dirt. Into turn 3, down the 2nd gear, left, right, left, into turn 5. Very low grip here at the start of the weekend. Big corner here, big exit onto that back stretch. And then into turn 7, which is one of the slowest corners on the track, 45 mile an hour, so a great opportunity to make some moves. Braking deep here at the 300, down the 1st gear. Good apex there, and then back to power through the S's and into turn 10. Turn 10 again, a hard brake zone into 2nd gear and a very bumpy braking here. Hard on the brakes, down the 2nd, and then back to power in this into this long left-hander. Really fun corner. Flat out, 3rd, 4th, and then into a tricky brake zone, braking and turning at the same time. Into tower here, using up all that exit, 2nd, 3rd, and then into Bishop, which is one of the quickest corners on the track. 5th gear, flat out, and then into the brake zone for 15. Hard on that apex curb right, using up all the track, apex curb left, and then back on the curb here at the apex of 16. Using up all the track coming onto the back straightaway. One of the most important corners on the track. Long straightaway following that turn 16, and then into 17. Super fun corner, very bumpy on entry and exit. Late on the brakes here, close to the end of the wall. Very bumpy here under the bridge, as you can see, and then back to power. Trying to run up as close as you can to that exit wall and back onto the front straightaway.
It's flat, it's bumpy, it's challenging. This is without a doubt a racetrack unlike any other.
So much character, and when we come from Watkins Glen, which is renowned for being super smooth, to come here is certainly a shock to the system. I've heard drivers related to being on a mechanical riding bull or being in a paint shaker down these long straightaways here, but either way, it's a real challenge for the engineers to get these cars set up to deal with these bumps and try and keep those Pirelli P0s somewhat glued to the ground.
It was a great day of qualifying, at least for Lamborghini teams, with K-Pax Racing sweeping the front row. Andrea Caldarelli on pole, Giovanni Venturini alongside Giacomo Altaway qualifying the TR3 car in the 3rd position. Then Russell Ward from Windward Racing. So 4 pro-class cars locking down the top 4 spots. Then you get to the Pro-Am points leader starting on pole, Fred Pourdad in the Wright Motorsports Porsche we were on board with a few moments ago. That car slotted in 5th on the starting grid. Triarsi Competizione on their debut. Charlie Scardina with a great qualifying effort here on their home track to start in the 6th overall position and on pole in the Am class. Row 4, Rodrigo Salas of Compass Racing and Jason Harward from Zalus Motorsport. Racer's Edge all the way back in 9th. Taylor Hagler qualifying that car that you see coming through the shot a moment ago. That has championship implications in Pro-Am. We'll have Jeff Burton starting alongside in 10th. Then Aaron Vogel and J.C. Sada making up Row 6. David Askew and Frank Gannett on the final row of this field.
Curious to see if Scardina can put some pressure on Fred Portad in terms of overall, not for class position, but that Ferrari's been very quick and only a couple of tenths off Fred's time in qualifying. So that'll be a decision for Fred to deal with, whether he wants to defend from a car that is not in his class here at the beginning of this race.
Let's talk championship points, the AM class points. That's basically done at this stage of the season. Only one full season entry, the AF Corsa car, J.C. Sada and Conrad Grunwald. But both Pro and Pro-Am still are up for grabs. It's a little bit closer in Pro-Am, but not all that much, given all the consistency from Wright Motorsports. Let's start there. What needs to be done for them to leave this weekend in the championship lead with an unassailable points total?
Well, if they win their class, it would need Taylor Hagler, because she's separated from her co-drivers this year on points, to finish P7 or worse. So that would be a stretch, because the car has been very strong. She has a lot of lap time here. She did the NSX Driver Academy here for a couple of days during the winter season. And she's also run a TCR race earlier this year here and had a podium run. So she knows the track well. I think she's probably a little bit disappointed from where she qualified based on her recent performances, coming off another win at the last round of the championship at Watkins Glen, teamed up with Jacob Abel that day. And Dakota Dickerson joins her today, and they had a really strong run at Road America, and Dakota looks very fast again this weekend. So I think they're going to move forward. So I think it's going to be really tough for the Wright Motorsport team to clinch here today, but could set them up nicely to maybe seal the deal tomorrow.
And in Pro, it's been a season dominated by Andrea Caldarelli and Jordan Pepper, but because there hasn't been the depth in the Pro class this season, a bad day, as long as you make it 70% of race distance, you still score 4th place points, even if you're last in that class. And that's kept things relatively close in the points despite their domination, but they've got a few chances, especially with the issues for Turner, to wrap this thing up before we head to Indy.
Yeah, I think the Turner problems definitely takes the heat off them, and essentially you're going to leave it to the Mercedes, the Winwood car, to really try and steal it. They'd need a win here today, and even with that, if the 3-car finishes on the podium, that'll be enough to eliminate them. Their teammates are still in it, the 6-car, but if they finish poorly today, that could also eliminate them. So 3 cars looking very strong. They'd love to get it tidied up as soon as possible, however.
The race format, 90 minutes is the distance. There's a mandatory pit window right around the halfway mark, 5 minutes on either side. You must come in. You can change tires and refuel. The driver change has to happen as well within that window. 80 seconds, the pit lane delta from pit in to pit out, including the pit stop time. If you go under that number, you run afoul of the minimum pit lane delta, and a penalty is issued. Anything over that, and you are in the clear. So with that said, how does pit strategy play out, especially here at Sebring, where we've not raced with this format in the past?
No, I think for the K-Pax team, I expect them to play a little bit safe. I mean, with these tire warmers that came into play a couple of years ago, even though it was a pretty warm day out there, I wouldn't think you'd be talking much about tire temperature, but even so, that outlap is critical in terms of how you come out and evolve into this race. So I think the undercut, as we call it, coming in a little bit early and getting some fresh Pirelli P0s on the race car would be the move that I would make. You always run into a potential yellow in that pit stop window. How does that shake out? So expect to see, we've seen it with a split strategy this year with the K-Pax team, but I wouldn't be surprised to see maybe the 3-car pit first, depending on what happens in this first half of the race.
Hendricks Field served as a training base for B-17 pilots back from 1941 to 1946. Then in 1950, Alec Ullman recognized that this might be an interesting venue to stage some endurance racing. Well, I think he was right. The Sebring 12-hour has become iconic, and now for another piece of history. Still very much on that same original pavement that hosted the Flying Fortresses back in the 40s. About to turn loose 14 GT3 cars for the first of 2 races this weekend. in Fanatec GT World Challenge America. K-Pack sweep of the front row. Caldarelli on the left side of the screen. It's Giovanni Venturini on the right. Then you have the TR3 Lamborghini just behind in row 2 of Giacomo Altoe and Russell Ward as we wait for the green flag. Headed down the front straightaway to start 90 minutes of racing in Sebring. The green flag flies and we are racing.
Good start there by the K-Pax teammates, and Venturini immediately slides over to the left side to try and block the way for Altoe. Can Russell Ward swing around the outside there in that grey Mercedes? He's got a good run there. Altoe very shallow on the exit.
And still able to put down some good power exiting that corner. He's putting the pressure on Venturini.
Really poor start there by Charlie Scardina aboard the AM leading Ferrari there, the silver car. I think he's back to about 10th position early.
First competitive race since 2007 for Charlie, so you can't really fault him for that. He drops back considerably, able to capitalize. Fred Pourdad, Rodrigo Salas, Jason Harward, Taylor Hagler, among others, able to jump up a couple of spots as a result of that slow start.
Good clean opening lap, it looks like. Exactly how K-Pax would have drawn it up, allowing Caldarelli to get the jump, and then being shadowed by his wingman there in Venturini.
Great battle here. It's Salas in the Compass Racing Acura NSX right behind his Porsche, trying to fend off the challenge from Jason Harward in that brightly colored Lamborghini Huracan GT3 Evo from Zelus Motorsports.
Great to see Rodrigo Salas back here in our North American paddock. Has been doing a lot of racing over in Europe, ran at the Le Mans 24-hour race a little bit earlier this summer. But the Acura has been pretty strong of late. This team coming off a big win at the last round of the championship at Watkins Glen. 2 on the season for Matt McMurray, who Salas will share this car with. He's sitting 3rd in the Pro-Am points right now as he starts to put the pressure on Salas does on Fred Pourdad. This is for class position.
Right there, Harward not going anywhere. His first season of GT3 racing and getting stronger and stronger as the year goes along. Behind him, it's Jeff Burton in the Reardon Racing Lamborghini, looking awfully racy here in the early stages.
Yeah, for the Reardon Racing team, Vesko Kozarov and Jeff Burton, their first visit here to this racetrack. Oh, Salas really wide there through 17. That's going to allow Howard to maybe keep to the inside and get the run. He does, and Jeff Burton goes with him.
Salas drops the 1 spot there to Harward. Now he has his mirrors filled with Jeff Burton taking a peek around the outside, slotting back in line. Salas in the Acura. It's in a Lamborghini sandwich right now. Harward in front, Burton behind.
See those bumps there as you exit turn 1. Big compression there. The car is still loaded. You haven't really got all of the energy out the side force of the car at that point when you hit that big bump. Really low speed here. If you can roll a bit of speed and not lose the rear end, you're going to have a ton of grip right now. These Pirelli P0s relatively fresh.
Slow speed part of the track leading into the high speed Big Bend. That sweeping right-hander, full throttle in these GT3 cars down towards the heavy braking zone, the hairpin of turn 7.
See people taking altering lines there. You can see the little skips there, the tire marks there. That really indicates where the bumps are in the road. They're into that braking zone. You swing out to the middle of the road, then go back to the left just before turning to ease the pain.
Caldarelli has consolidated his lead over Venturini, 1.2 seconds from first to second. Altoe, though, hounding fellow Lamborghini factory driver Venturini for second. This is that battle right here. Green Lamborghini is Venturini. Altoe in the white car from TR3 Racing. Interested spectator just behind Russell Ward in the Windward Racing Mercedes.
TR3 looking really strong here on their pro class debut this season. It's their home track. They're based here in Florida, so they test here quite a bit. But for Altoe, learning racetracks on a sim really doesn't do it justice unless you're on a full motion simulator to really indicate what this racetrack is going to be like when you see it for the first time.
Bumped into him earlier this morning, asked him what he thinks of Sebring. He had a big smile on his face. He says, I love it, but it's unlike anything else I've ever seen before. He's not the first driver to say that. I suspect he won't be the last.
Well, you wrote it. I think initially you can't believe it, what you got to deal with, and then you gradually get your head around it and adjust, and then you gradually embrace it the more times you come back here.
Took a little peek to the inside, then right back behind the green car he's chasing of Giovanni Venturini. Dropping back to the fight at the front of the Pro-Am field. Pro-Am leader Fred Pourdad right here, the number 20 Porsche, Wright Motorsports. He'll be turning that over to Jan Hagler, who has been blisteringly quick. qualified this car on the overall pole for race 2 tomorrow. Jason Harwood, though, very impressive in this brand new Zalus Motorsport team. Their first year of GT3 racing, or really pro racing at all. Goes a little bit wide there, but it's been a nice year of solid improvement week to week.
Yeah, you could see him there. He tried to swing out wide and try and set up Portad, but then got into the marbles there on the outside of the racetrack. The grip is not there, so that's a learning curve for him right there. Defending vigorously there down at the middle of the road. Salas tries to go on the attack. Burton nearly into the back of the Acura as he thought about making a move.
Salas very aggressive as well. It's been since the rounds at Circuit of the Americas since we've last seen Rodrigo racing in GT World Challenge America, but not skipping a beat, throws it up to the inside, can't get it wound down enough, and that lets Harwood cut back right underneath.
Yeah, good racing between those two, giving each other just enough room, hard but fair. And the tyres are giving you the grip to run those alternate lines right now. It'll be a bit more of a scramble later in the stint.
Salas, who's been a busy guy with a big program racing in Europe, has some links going back quite a ways with Compass Racing, running some touring cars for them over the years. He takes a peek up the inside here.
Ooh, that's bold.
Oh,
yeah.
Contact between the two. Not a place you're used to expecting to see your competition sling it up the inside.
Yeah, too much entry speed there, unless the person in front of you is going really slowly. So that's a bit too aggressive there. He may cop a penalty for that one.
Good news is Harwood was able to get it going pretty quickly. You can see him back there. Now he's coming under pressure from Taylor Hagler in the Racer's Edge Acura NSX GT3 Evo. Headed down the Holman Straight into Sunset Bend.
Key is going to be whether he cut down one of those right-hand side tires or suffered any damage. It's okay there. We just saw a glimpse of the right side going through those big bumps in turn 17.
How long does it take until you know that you've got... Well, first let's look at this replay. What do you make of it, Cal?
Well, it's just not a good place to try and make a move. There's a high entry speed there, there's big commitment, and if a driver sees you at the last moment, they may open up their hands a little bit, but that's going to put you immediately into problems yourself. You're not going to keep it on the racetrack, even though there's runoff room there, so it's a little bit too aggressive in my mind.
How long do you know after contact that everything's copacetic, you're good to go?
It depends. Sometimes it can be immediate. You can knock the tire off the rim. Sometimes it can be a slow leak. You can just cut into that sidewall, which will develop into a leak as you continue to run. We'll have to wait and see. Hopefully for Howard, he's got a fast car. Madison Snow coming off a big win at Long Beach last week, so his confidence will be high as teammate.
Talked about the difficulties at the initial start for Charlie Scardina. He's driving this brand new car, the silver Ferrari, brand new to the championship. And Charlie, who has very limited pro racing experience, has not been in a race car competitively since 2007 when he finished second in the Porsche Single Make Championship here in North America. And that actually led to a chance for him to try out for what was at the time called the UPS Porsche Junior team. There was a shootout of drivers from across the globe. It ultimately went to Marco Holzer, who's had a nice, long, and successful career. But since that season, Charlie's been out of the racing game. He's a real estate developer now in Florida. Told me he's happy that his life turned out the way that it did, and racing can be a hobby rather than a profession. And he has been in contact with this Triarci group for a number of years, and they decided this is the time. Let's go ahead and get into some competition here this weekend with an eye on not just one, but possibly two cars for the full season next year.
Yeah, super impressive in qualifying, and I think maybe he was just taking a very conservative approach to the initial race start here, recognizing that they have a nice advantage in the AM class to start this race. Just let the race come to them. Let's settle in a little bit as we see Altuve keeping the pressure on Venturini, and Russell Ward's not going anywhere as well. So maybe a bit of a cork in the bottle here with that green Lamborghini.
That's the way it looks, and it's let Andrea Caldarelli pull ahead. He's been setting CrowdStrike fastest lap after lap. The last one, a 2:03.466. That's about 0.3 of a second faster than this group is running. Gregory Romanelli there in the inset, team owner for TR3 Racing. He's been all smiles this weekend. The chance to get back into the pro ranks where they've been for a number of years in the past. That makes him very happy.
Remember when they burst onto the scene with Daniel Mancinelli at St. Petersburg? Was it 2017? 2018, I'm not sure exactly which year, but it came to the season open and no one had heard of the team at this level. No one had heard of Daniel Mancinelli, and they put the car on the pole. And since that time, whenever they show up, they always deliver a really strong race car and good performance.
And Gregory was the driver himself and spent some time trying to make it in motorsports as a driver, but had a very serious accident at Lime Rock back in 2016. And since then has been focused on building this program for so many years associated with Ferrari, but making the switch to Lamborghini here this year. Not just here, but also Lamborghini Super Trofeo, and he's admitted it's been a learning experience. And that's part of the reason they want to go to an all-pro lineup here to basically close out the season with this race, the final couple of races in this format, because the final race of the season is the 8-hour Enduro at Indianapolis, just to make sure they've kind of gotten their heads around this program, and to have Dennis Lin stepping in alongside Giacomo Altoe immediately turns this car into a contender for the overall win.
And I think it makes quite the statement if you can go out there even as they are today, giving the K-Pax team a bit of a hard time. That is significant, because K-Pax such an experienced and accomplished team. They got essentially Lamborghini factory pilots on board that car, along with Jordan Pepper, who's employed by the K-Pax team directly, but solid in every way. And to come out here on your pro racing debut to make this sort of performance, I mean, I think they were disappointed this morning in qualifying. I think they really went to bed last night thinking we got a shot at the pole, but the racetrack, as we said, was a little bit different this morning. So Venturini a little bit wide there. That gives Altoe the grip coming off there. It just seems if you get wide through that turn 5, you really are not able to get the power down. You lose traction and ultimate performance and terminal speed down into this brake zone.
But Venturini has the preferred line through the hairpin, and they were both pretty equal on the brakes. So the preferred line gives the edge to Venturini. He fends off that challenge for a moment. Getting set to replace Giacomo Altoe in the TR3 car is Dennis Lind, and he is with Amanda.
Well, Ryan, he found out last Thursday that he was going to be racing here this weekend, got on a flight over from Denmark and got himself prepared here to race here in Sebring. Actually has Martin Fuente's suit to race with here today. But Dennis, when you think of, you've had a couple practice sessions, we've had qualifying earlier here today. What can you watch for in the first half of this race that you can apply to race day?
Well, I think most position changes going to happen in the first half of the race. You might be able to undercut on new tires here. The gap between all the new tires is quite big, so you can try some stuff, but it looks like the K-Pax car is a little bit quick today.
That sounds to me that the defense will be the strategy in the back half of this race. At what corners will you really have to be on the lookout for people approaching?
Sorry?
What corners will you really have to be on the lookout for people approaching?
So I don't know the corner names here exactly, but I think turn 6, Hotel, turn 10 for sure is a good opportunity, but also into the S's. It's quite a big opportunity for a pass if you get a good run. But it's not an easy track for us to pass on. We're not the quickest car in a straight line, so we really have to bet on people making small mistakes and maybe make some room ourselves.
Well, Cal, I know you're very familiar with the turn names here. As a driver, where does the defense step in the back half of this race?
Well, it just depends really how the car is handling and how much is struggling for grip coming off some of the corners. So we saw Venturini, he did have to defend down into his turn 7, telling not 6, but he knows it's the hairpin turn. So if you're slow off this one, turn 5 that we're looking at right now, you don't get the power down, you've immediately got to go to the middle of the road. So there's good overtaking opportunities around this racetrack. And as Dennis alluded to, tire deck could be a factor, so the undercut could be very powerful in terms of getting fresh tires on early in the middle of this race.
Swap of position here, Taylor Hagler around Jeff Burton. That is now for second in Pro-Am. Really good opening stint here for Taylor. I don't think she'll be thrilled with how she qualified for this race. Started quite a ways back, 9th overall, but has driven her way forward now into second in that class and is chasing down the class leader as Burton goes a little bit wide in the braking zone for the hairpin, but she still has the AM class car of Scardina separating herself from Cordad, who runs 5th overall and leads in Pro-Am. This is how the pass was made.
Yeah, down the front straightaway, just got good exit speed through the final corner, tucks it down at the inside. And if you try and run the outside around here, watch the bumps there right at the exit that Jeff is on. So nice clean move. She's now 6 seconds behind Fred Pordad for the class lead. And I think the real key for her now is to somehow try and minimize that gap before the pit stops happen this afternoon. Because you know that Wright Motorsports are typically very much on in terms of minimizing any time loss in pit lane. And as we saw in the pro qualifying session here this morning, Jan Halen is up on the wheel and very quick here.
Definitely so. Qualified on the overall pole for race 2 and has been among the fastest in every session, first or second in every session so far here this weekend. That is Pordat coming through in the Porsche, then Scardina in the Ferrari. Taylor Hagler right behind, giving this Acura a nice run. Coming down the Ullman straight into turn 17. Second now in Pro-Am and trying her best to keep in the championship picture. Probably is the car she's chasing for that title is the one that runs up the road.
Yeah, that is the difficulty. You think, oh, we're having a great day with second. Well, guess what? The championship lead is one position in front of you. So that's the game right now. It's going to be a tall order for Taylor to chase down both Jan and Fred for that title. But we'll have to wait and see what she does.
Looks like Rodrigo Salas has dropped back. I'm not sure if there was a penalty issued for the contact, but from running very much in the mix, he's now shown down in 14th and is still not come around to complete the lap that these drivers did just a few moments ago. Jason Harwood has stayed on the track after the contact and continues to run in 9th overall and 4th in class. Here comes Hagler up the inside in the braking zone for the hairpin. That was textbook, and now she can set off in hot pursuit of Fred Pordat.
Yeah, really solid there. Didn't mess around, didn't sort of like get in no man's land, just kind of stuck it down the inside and continued through. So we saw this at Road America, I believe, where she just really got in her stride, if you remember, just suddenly found the sweet spots, like when she turns the tires on and gets the tires into their operating range where she's comfortable, she has no problem just marching forward.
And she's got a rapid co-driver this weekend as well. Dakota Dickerson is back and had a great qualifying effort earlier this morning for race 2 that has them starting in the top 2 rows. So if she can get up to Fred Pordat, there's a good chance Dakota Dickerson can at least make life difficult on Jan Heylen during the second stint of the race.
We mentioned the NSX Driver Academy. They spent time here at Sebring during the off-season, so they have plenty of laps here with this chassis. They also had the pros on board running lap times for the graduates to really learn from. So that will have given them some setup advice with the likes of Dane Cameron and people like that jumping on board this car. So the car should be dialed in, admittedly different time of the year. And this racetrack is always different every time you show up day to day, let alone different seasons. Altaway keeping the pressure on Venturini for this second position right now on the road.
Doesn't seem like Russell Ward's quite been able to stick with this battle. He's not too far back. You can see the Mercedes there kicking up the dust at the back of the shot, but he has dropped off the fight to a degree, and that frees up Giacomo Altaway to focus on being aggressive, focus on attacking, trying to snag the second position away from Venturini, because while this is raging, Andrea Caldarelli leads by almost 9 seconds.
Yeah, he scampered off and continues to run laps about a second quicker than this chasing pack here. So he's doing what he needs to do for his teammate Jordan Pepper, give him a nice healthy lead to try and just manage the way to the checkered flag. So unless we see a reset in terms of a caution or something, it looks like this 3 car are in really strong shape today. Venturini, if they can hold on at that second position, that does keep the door open till tomorrow at least. So if the 3 car wins, the 6 car has to finish second or even keep the gap sufficient enough that it doesn't clinch for the 3 car tonight.
A little bit further back, this is Frank Gannett defending from David Askew. Aston Martin versus Mercedes for 12th and 13th overall, but 6th and 7th in Pro-Am.
Nice run here for Frank. Really starting to get to grips with his Aston Martin chassis for the G3 and Lacey Racing team. Didn't come out of the box as strong as they hoped, I think. It was a big jump up to a GT3, but they're getting a lot of support from Aston Martin Racing, but it's just a different category, a lot to get your head around. I think they're struggling to get all the equipment in place initially in the season. The COVID restrictions globally in terms of getting parts and all of the bits and pieces that you need for support equipment certainly was very challenging for a team switching to a different category and a new brand for this year.
7 times already this season, this car has reached victory lane. Andrea Caldarelli is one half of the driving lineup, and the other is with Amanda.
Well, those 7 races on the season so far put them in the position to clinch the championship already. 1 event ahead of schedule right here in Sebring. And Jordan, I think from your math, you're saying the 6 car would have to finish in 3rd place and you guys would have to win this race. But prior this season kicking off. You look at the success you have now. Why did you know that this could be a possibility?
You know, I think it goes back to, I'm sure we spoke right at the beginning, and I mentioned that we're gelling really well as a team, especially myself and Andrea with our whole crew. You know, it's an amazing team, an amazing brand, and Andrea brought so much knowledge into the whole program as well, and Lamborghini supported it a lot, so it allowed us to kickstart the year like on a good note. And you know, we just chipped away, we've progressed all the time, and you know, today we could potentially wrap it up, but ultimately the goal is this weekend to have 2 good smooth race results and then wrap the championship end of the weekend. You know, we're not pressured to do it today, we're not pressured to do it tomorrow, but it would be nice.
You've spent this season seeing some of the classic racetracks across America. What's been the highlight for you?
You know, all of them are really cool because they're all old school, all really special. They have their own characteristics, and I think VIR was really a special racetrack, but Watkins Glen obviously topped it. We got a double win there, double pole, everything was amazing there, you know. So the Glen holds a special place now, and yeah, Sebring's obviously really cool and special as well, you know, and that's what's cool. Every track around the country, East Coast, West Coast, all have their own unique features, and a lot of it's got a lot of character from the surroundings, which makes it quite special. No worries.
Saw just a moment ago, Race Vision powered by AWS, top speeds, and Lamborghini well represented there.
Caldarelli just set new fast lap at 202.7. Put in perspective, Venturini and Altoe ran 204.2s. 1.5 seconds quicker than the second and third place runners right now.
And it happens nearly 22 minutes into this race. And yes, you have some benefit from the fuel burning off and the weight going down, but I think it speaks volumes about what Pirelli has brought to the equation, that you get this deep into a race, into a stint, pushing as hard as he is, and the time just keeps coming.
We've seen it time and time again, and we thought today maybe, I mean, it's a long way to go. I mean, potentially you've got another 30 minutes before you have to come in. So that can certainly be a factor a little bit later in this run. But we've seen it time and time again with the Pirellis running really fast laps, deep into the stint. Obviously, it's a much more of a challenge here with the bumps and the skipping across the road and the heat that we're seeing, ambient temperature. Almost touching 90 degrees right now, but 88, 89 degrees ambient. High humidity, so it's a big challenge for the drivers.
This has been a great nip and tuck battle here. Lamborghini versus Lamborghini, so that takes away maybe some of the opportunity to make a pass where one platform has a strength in one part of the track and the other has a strength in another. But that said, you know exactly what the guy in front of you or behind you is dealing with. You have a pretty similar setup. It's just down to the team and the small tweaks that these teams can do. It's fascinating to watch these two nip and tuck around this racetrack lap after lap with really nothing to separate them.
Yeah, because you can come to a certain sector or a certain corner on a racetrack where the power delivery is, where the gear ratio is in a Lamborghini, for example, versus the Mercedes that's chasing right now. One may have an advantage over another just for that split moment, but that may be enough to make a move. But when you're running essentially identical chassis, as you said, Ryan, it does make it a bit more challenging.
Also note that Taylor Hagler's been running good laps here as of late and has been chipping away at the lead that Fred Pordad had built early in this race. It went down by 0.6 of a second that last time. She still has 5 seconds left to find, but there is a little bit of something brewing in that battle for the Pro-Am lead while this fight continues as hot and heavy as ever.
Yeah, and you'd expect those AM drivers to be in pretty quickly in that pit stop window, so we're about 17 minutes away from that happening. So still quite a few more laps. So if she can continue to chip at that ½ second a lap, she should be right with Fred, and that will really put the pressure on the Wright Motorsports team to execute that pit stop.
We've seen this a couple of times there from Venturini, where he takes a shallow or defensive approach to the braking zone to the hairpin, then comes back out wide. Is there a bump he's trying to avoid, or is that trying to keep the Altoe car behind?
I think it's more of like a line to eliminate the biggest bump, and once you start hitting those bumps, you're kind of in a porpoiseness. I was trying to catch up, so I think if you can miss the first one, it doesn't set you into that kind of roller coaster ride as early. So we laughed this morning when I related it to Monaco coming out of Casino Square, but you kind of take a slightly adjusted line.
The car that was chasing these two just moments ago has made an unscheduled trip into the pit lane. Inward racing, and this has implications too, especially if they can't get going. If there is something seriously wrong, And they're tumbling down the order now. Russell Ward in the pits, and this is far too soon. Because that pit window is still 15 minutes from opening. That's a telltale sign, isn't it? The hood goes up and the crew goes to work.
It's a shame because they had problems at the last rounds of the championship, a brake issue at Watkins Glen, which really dinged them big time in the points because they didn't get to the minimum drive time to score points that day. Otherwise, it would have been a lot closer. And this is really putting in great shape for the K-Pax team to not necessarily clinch it for the 3 car here today, but mean us between the 3 or the 6 as we head to tomorrow in the final rounds at Indy.
And to make it a fight just between the 2 team cars out of the K-Pax stable. Got a replay here. This is...
Ooh, that's going to be nasty as Frank turns in. Fortunately, he took it in so deep, Salas did. It cleared Frank by the time Frank turned into the corner. I think if it had been closer, I'm not sure Frank would have seen him coming unless he's got a spotter down there. Sometimes they have a spotter at the hotel right on the exit there. The hotel is called 7, in reference to the corner number as well.
I think I can see my room from that camera shot, as a matter of fact. Overlooks the famous turn 7 where these cars are going through right now. Yeah, that was Salas, though, trying to come back through the field after the contact earlier and what I believe was a drive-through penalty. It does show that he's made a trip through the pit lane at least. That dropped him to the back of the field.
Here we go.
Altoay starting to get stronger, it appears, as the run goes along, and he is hounding Venturini, forces him wide. The mistake occurs, and that lets the white Lambo through.
Yeah, Venturini saw Altoay having a little look there. I thought Altoay was going to go for it. I think Venturini just took it in a little bit too deep. When you do that with these GT3 cars, it's easy to activate the ABS because you're going a little bit deeper, you hit a bump, suddenly it locks up that wheel, or tries to, and then the ABS kicks in, makes it a little bit numb and vague on the front end, and you can't get the car turned, and that's exactly what happened. Now the key will be, what sort of delta is there now between this car and the leading number 3? Can he put any dent in that gap that's been created up to nearly 14 seconds, as we see a look here once again?
This is how the move was made to bring TR3 up to 2nd overall in their first race weekend running in the Pro Class here this season. And now for the first time, that car will be turned loose with clear air out in front. And we'll see what the true pace is for Altoay relative to Caldarelli over the next couple of laps before the pit window opens.
Really strong run for Frank Gannett. This is good stuff here. This will put a big smile on his face, and also his teammate Drew Staveley's face, Andy and Lacey for that matter. Just seeing him racing here at this level of competition, it's a big step for an AM driver, and Frank's really worked hard at his craft here in terms of learning how to be a driver at this level.
And for the team, too, making the jump from GT4 to GT3. They were telling me earlier in the year the Mustang that they were racing last year had 20-some different settings on the shocks. You can multiply that by 10 with this GT3 car, and it just orders of magnitude more complicated. And we've seen the team and drivers get stronger and stronger as the year goes along. We'll see what Rodrigo Salas can do trying to pick up one more spot. As we jump up the field now and look at Aaron Vogel, who's having a nice run. 5th position as it stands in Pro-Am, 9th overall, and Amanda is in the DXDT Racing pits.
We're actually over with Windward Racing with a very unfortunate update. Standing by with Mikhail Grenier, who said, well, it is racing at Sebring, but what happened? And unfortunately out of the race at this point.
We have a power steering issue, so it's unfortunate because it was a good chance for us to score some point with the BMW out of the race. We don't know what happened. There's no oil leak, nothing, so we have to check at the paddock, but the race is over.
As you get prepared for race number 2, how do you just maintain those emotions of being able to bounce back from an unfortunate end to race 1?
Well, it's not fun, but it's part of racing. Tomorrow we have a good chance. We start on the front row, so we try to score maximum point, but that's how it is.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Team may like to do is see if they can get a fix. Use this as a bit of a test session to make sure that the car will be strong for tomorrow. Obviously for Grenier, not as devastating. He's not in the championship picture. He's not running on a consistent basis. For Russell Ward, takes away any outside shot. And they had a really good shot at getting Russell up to that 2nd and 3rd position at least and putting the pressure on the 6 and the 96, excuse me.
Unfortunately, that means they will not score points for the 2nd consecutive race with the brake issue on the first lap at Watkins Glen. Now power steering problems here, and it's unfortunate for us as well and for you at home Cale Grenier is must-see TV when he's behind the wheel. He was a star at the VIR race, and we saw that in qualifying this morning for race 2. He talked about the front row start. Well, he's the one responsible for that, and hopefully they can get that all squared away in time for tomorrow's race, because I'm excited to see what he can do.
Yeah, he's really impressive this morning in qualifying, so certainly has a shot at grabbing the lead early tomorrow if they can get that car back to 100%. So Salas here cutting his way back through the field. He had a pit stop, I assume, for a penalty for that contact a little bit earlier in the race with Harwood. He's back on the rebound here. Ideally, they need a yellow, try and tighten things back up again before Matt McMurray gets back behind the wheel. Matt looking for his 3rd win on the season.
They've all come with Michael DeMeo as his co-driver. I think we talked about it back during qualifying a little bit. The first couple of race weekends for Compass Racing weren't the smoothest. I think it's safe to say they showed decent pace but couldn't put races together. Suddenly something started to change at VIR. And I think the team that Rodrigo Salas is returning to is almost a different one in some respects to the one that he started the season with. It should be a team with a great deal of confidence based on the pace that they have displayed. And in addition to that, they seem to have this package dialed in working with this NSX.
They really do. It's a hard-working group. They're very busy running multiple programs. And you know, we expected this type of performance where they can run at the sharp end and score class victories. And I think with Michael DeMeo, I mean, it was really great to see him get that opportunity again. He's one of those young drivers who kind of slipped through the net, didn't have opportunity there for a few years, but much the same as we've seen earlier today with some of the GT4 runners. You give these young guys a second chance and they're going to grab it. They're just so hungry for success.
We were curious what Giacomo Altoe could do once he was clear of the traffic, and he now is running lap times still a little bit off of what we're seeing from Caldarelli. What has happened to Venturini?
Yeah, he's plunged down the order here. He's been in the pits actually, or he's in the pits, so that's why he's well down the order. So this could absolutely seal the deal for the 3 car. With the 33 car having problems, they may not score any points here today, and the 6 car now dropping well down. 6 car has to finish 2nd to keep the championship open to tomorrow. They're now 3rd in class but 9th overall.
Well, coming to Sebring and talking about attrition is nothing new, but we're usually talking about that over the course of a 12-hour race. We're just 33 minutes into this one. Of course, it didn't start in the race. There was the issue for the Turner car going back to qualifying this morning, but yeah, it goes to show what a tough old place this racetrack is.
It is. It will certainly expose any weakness in the driver, in the setup, and certainly the mechanical reliability of a race car, and that's what makes it so rewarding when you do succeed here, because it is the ultimate challenge.
This is a nice battle shaping up here. Good recovery from Jason Harwood. Remember, he had the spin after the contact with Rodrigo Salas, but was able to keep it going. Apparently the car not damaged in any kind of meaningful way. And he has recovered nicely to run 4th in Pro-Am and is slowly but surely reeling in this Lamborghini. Jeff Burton having a very good run of his own right now on the class podium in Pro-Am for Reardon Racing.
Harwood shares this car with Madison Snow, who's coming off a GT3 win at Long Beach last weekend. And both Madison and Corey Lewis shared a car to victory at the 12 Hours here in years past. So good vibes for both of those drivers.
No doubt about it, bringing some of that track knowledge into play here. So many of these teams and drivers either have no experience here or none recently, because it's been so long since this championship has run here. 2009 was the last time. Some teams and drivers, though, do have experience racing here in the 12-hour race. And any experience you can bring, especially a place like this that has so much nuance to it, is very valuable.
Pretty wild to see that inside front tire literally about 6 inches off the ground as you bounce through turn 17. That takes some getting used to. I mean, when you're coming here on debut like Jeff Burton is, that is not a fun feeling initially.
That was a good lap from Burton. He just turned in his personal best to 2:05.697. And that helped to build that cushion to something a bit more manageable, possibly. Over a second now over Harvard as we take a peek once again at Erin Vogel, who continues to run 8th overall now, 5th in Pro-Am. And she is right behind that Burton Harwood fight we were talking about a moment ago.
Yep, they're having a strong year. Had a win, 6 top 5s for the 19 car of Erin and Michael Cooper. Michael, a 4-time World Challenge champion, variety of classes. And they're only 16 points away from P3 in this championship, so a lot to fight for here.
Had the historic win at VIR where Erin became the first female driver to win in a GT3 race in SRO America competition, or going back to Pirelli World Challenge before that. Did get an update from Amanda on what happened to Venturini. The word is a tire puncture forced them to the pit lane, and that's costly because it came outside of the mandatory pit window, so they still have to pit just like everybody else within that window. The good news, though, is the car is still running and can run at a decent pace, so there is the chance to recover, but if it happens, it will be against the pros in the Pro-Am lineups. That second half of the race becomes that much more difficult to recover in if you are an all-pro lineup here, just because you're going to be going up against drivers of the same experience level as yourself.
Look, Scardina here leading in AM by a healthy margin right now. Continuing to impress as he gets back on the horse, so to speak, after a long time out of racing at this level. Certainly had a very impressive early stage of his career, and then, as you mentioned earlier, Ryan went off in a different direction with his business, and it's got to be fun to come to a racetrack like this at this stage of life and be performing at this type of level. Great team. We saw Mark Shulman on board there with the engineering squad for this team, so they've got some good key people in place to make sure this car is tuned up.
They plan on running a 24-hour race here at Sebring next month as well. So this is a team that's based in Orlando, has a lot of experience here in Ferrari Challenge. They've done some testing here in preparation for this. Felt like this would be a great place to debut and test the waters a little bit ahead of a potential 1 or 2 car operation within SRO America. Looking ahead to next year, I want to call attention to Jeff Burton, who we were just talking about a moment ago, running in 3rd in Pro-Am, and he has dropped all the way back to 13th overall and 8th in class on this lap. So I'm not sure what went wrong.
Yeah, lost a minute on that lap, so he must have almost had a spin and a problem or a reset on the electronics or something. Didn't come a pit lane, not according to our timing and scoring screen, but that last lap at 3:02.
That's unfortunate for them. They were having what was shaping up to be the best run of their season. He and Vesko Kozarov had a 4th place result in the first race at Circuit of the Americas, and since then it's been a bit of tough sledding.
This is certainly tightening up here. Battle for the Pro-Am lead. We talked about it being 6 seconds once Hagler cut through to that 2nd position. She's got that down to 2.1 last time across the line. And a couple of minutes to go, so it's probably going to be tight to do it on the next lap to dive to pit lane. Certainly 1, maybe 2 more laps before they turn it over to their teammates. It's down at 1.75. She would love to be right on the tail of this Porsche when it's time to hit pit lane.
And this has to be a case of deja vu for her, right? She ended our race weekend at Watkins Glen trying to chase down Fred in very similar fashion.
Yeah, I think she's got into a really good rhythm, as we said. Probably disappointing in her qualifying run. I think she came in here pretty high in terms of the hopes of what they'd be able to achieve this weekend, but that's all part and parcel of it. You're going to have that odd qualifying run that disappoints. Maybe they missed the setup a little bit, or she just didn't nail the lap, but certainly has rebounded nicely.
Actually got an update on that very topic. They were in position, they thought, to start in the top 3 and called her into the pit lane, and a couple of cars went out and went faster late in that session, and that cost them starting position. So certainly not happy with where they started, but the pace in the car has been quite good. And we're seeing that on display. And don't go anywhere, because Dakota Dickerson has been super fast all weekend long. I'm excited to see what he can do when he gets his turn.
She's continuing to trim a 10th or 2 per sector out of this gap to our leader. So it's going to be really tight when they get to the pit entry to see whether we're down to that 50-minute mark. I think they're going to be just outside it. going to have to do one more lap before they get off the racetrack. See what she can do on this lap. Looking really smooth. I believe Ryan Eversley is here on site once again doing the coaching for this academy program. Just a ton of experience and race smarts in that head to be delivering over the radio comms here when the drivers are behind the wheel.
Think about the brain trust available to these drivers as part of the HPD GT3 Academy that they studied under last year when the Academy was going on, now graduating into the race seat. You have Ryan Eversley and Ricky Taylor and Mario Farnbacher and Dane Cameron, plus all the smart engineers with HPD as well. It's a really cool initiative. John Meraki, who heads up Racer's Edge, he's a big believer in helping to identify and promote young talent. He was all for this. His team is the one that ran the chassis, ran the car for that academy, and then helping some of those drivers from the academy step into racing. And there's a whole new crop going through the academy this year, and we expect to see at least one of those drivers making that next step, not just next year, but possibly as soon as the Indy 8 Hours.
Look at this. She's really getting super close. We expect both these cars to be hitting pit lane next time by as we see some of the earlier stoppers. You don't have to necessarily be the leaders to get that first opportunity. So Jason Harwood is in with the Zalus car. Madison Snow jumping in behind the wheel now.
Also, Aaron Vogel will be turning over to Michael Cooper. That pit stop is underway. J.C. Sada to Conrad Grunwald. Rodrigo Salas giving way to Matt McMurray. Pretty much every Pro-Am or Am car that came by when the window opened has taken this opportunity to come in.
Leader is in. Caldarelli's in. We anticipated that, protecting that lead. You don't need anything to go awry in terms of full course yellow during this pit stop exchange here. So you're going to see that black Lamborghini Huracan hitting its pit box momentarily.
Especially with a 21-second lead, and that's exactly what Caldarelli had built. The change is about to take place from Caldarelli to Pepper. Just saw them come to a halt there in the pit lane. Harward comes out and has Cooper right behind. Don't think that DXDT car was this close prior to the window, so let's look at the pit times. And we'll see what we can find out about that. Well, actually, it was the other way around, that the Zalus team was a little bit quicker in the pit lane. So maybe it's just them running at that reduced pace.
Yeah, I think Vogel must have had a good in-lap there to close the gap a little bit. So Madison Snow behind the wheel of the Zalus car now as the leaders. Just looking for a good, clean race. Nothing fancy, but speaking of fancy, those lap times by Caldarelli were pretty fancy in themselves.
Unbelievably fast, as we've come to expect, not just here, but look at his resume, and there are race wins and championships sprinkled all over it. Clean pit stop for K-Pax, 80.761 seconds. You can't be under 80 seconds, so they did that just about perfectly. Slipping in line just behind the sister car that was waylaid earlier, and Giovanni Venturini just gets out of the way. Yeah,
Venturini, he had the lead briefly because he hasn't made his pit stop yet, but nonetheless, just on the back foot a little bit. It's been a tough summer for both Corey Lewis and Venturini. As we see the Pro-Am leader, Fred Portad, just hanging on to that lead barely. Jan Halen now behind the wheel.
Yeah, that was quick pit work from Racer's Edge because it looked like they were coming in a hurry. Now let's see to make sure none of them were under the minimum. They'll trip that timing line momentarily.
Well, the 20 car they're both under it, but they have the 1 second joker to play with. 119.65 versus 119.68. A 120 is the minimum, but you have a 1 second lenience, let's call it that, to work with.
The all-important outlap. This whole perspective has changed somewhat with the addition of the tire warmers going back a couple of years.
And that's experience right there. Jan Helen having the confidence to lean on his car a little bit sooner on this basically half outlap, because Dakota Dickerson was right with him when they left pit lane.
Jan Halen is fast no matter what car he's driving here in Sebring. He has the GT4 track record coming into this weekend at least, and he was flirting with track record territory in GT3 spec cars as well. Going back to practice qualifying.
Won the 12-hour here last year, finished second earlier this year, so a lot of success at this racetrack.
Belgian driver who now calls Florida home, and he is the Swiss Army knife in the toolbox for Wright Motorsports. Wherever they need a fast driver to just plug and play, he jumps in and does not skip a beat.
Can you have a Belgian Army knife, I guess?
I guess so. And here's Michael Cooper, who is now in front of Onofrio Triarsi, who has taken over that car. Saw run in the AM class lead for the entirety of that stint.
It's a good racing name, isn't it?
It is. That Triarsi name, they're the ones behind this team. Triarsi Competizione, linked up with Ferrari of Central Florida and Ferrari of Tampa. The family also has a Ferrari restoration business in New Jersey. Ferrari, it seems like, is in the blood. And for Onofrio, this is a return to competitive racing as well. He's a two-time class champion in Ferrari Challenge, but you got to go back about a decade. And he's not done a whole lot of racing since, but he's been enjoying himself all weekend long as we see K-Pax going to work on the 6 car now.
A lot of Ferrari in that information that you were given there.
Mm-hmm. There's a reason for that.
Yes, I think they love that brand, and why not?
Expecting big news out of Ferrari coming up the first couple of days of next week as they look ahead to defending their win in the beginning of the Intercontinental GT Challenge season. They had that dramatic victory at the Total Energies 24 Hours of Spa back in July. There should be some interesting lineups. Oh, that's a big moment there from Cooper as he goes wide. He was balked a little bit there by Corey Lewis leaving the pits. No fault of Corey's, but it caught Cooper out at a strange moment, and he had his hands full at the exit of turn 1.
Yeah, that corner's a handful in itself, let alone when you're dealing with the car coming out of pit lane. So certainly used every ounce of his skill there to get away with that one.
Boy, that was some save from Michael Cooper. Quickly to put a bow on the Ferrari story, we do expect to see what the Ferrari lineups for the Indy 8 Hours, the second leg of the Intercontinental GT Challenge season, coming up in the next few days to start the week. Several other manufacturers slated to make similar announcements. Here's a replay, and you're going to want to buckle up for this one.
Wow. And you're coming through that corner, and you're really just trying to identify that closing speed and where you're going to meet them. You don't want to certainly give up too much space, but he just got in there really hard, really deep, probably lost a little bit of air off the nose as well with that Lamborghini Huracan right in front of him. But there's some fast cars out on that racetrack right now. Dickerson just had the fastest first sector of the day. Halen the fastest second sector of the day. They are absolutely flying.
I'm telling you, that's going to be a battle to keep an eye on. That's for the Pro-Am lead. The veteran experience of Jan Halen, the youthful exuberance of Dakota Dickerson, who has only a handful of GT3 starts on his CV. It's quite a bit more than that for Jan Halen at this stage in his career. And it'll be a fun battle to keep an eye on as Jan Halen just set the CrowdStrike fastest lap of the race. 2:01.531. Dickerson just behind, about 0.7 of a second off the back pace. They run 3rd and 4th overall, 1st and 2nd in Pro-Am.
Yeah, and I don't think they're going to chase down the pro cars for the lead. Pepper now has a 47-second lead over Halen, a 24-second lead over Lind, who runs in 2nd. But I think Jan Halen knows he's got a battle on his hand. Dickerson is running some fast lap times. I think Halen's looking forward to tomorrow starting that car from the pole position.
Jordan Pepper is picked up right where Andrea Caldarelli left off. He's running within 1/10 of a second of Caldarelli's best times from the opening stint of this race. But Halen is in another zip code, doing a 2:01.5. Everyone else, at best, is running mid-2:02s.
Personal best in Sector 1. He's about to trip the line for Sector 2. Let's see what he does there. Not a personal best there, so let's see how much performance he took out of those tires in those blistering opening laps. New Pirelli P0s going on these cars during the pit stop, of course. And Dickerson is still there. He is not going away. Let's see on the long green flag run which of these two cars has the pace.
That's the fun part of GT3 racing. These cars, very similar performance windows, but they do it in different ways. Some are stronger at the start of a stint, some at the end. We drop back now and look at Matt McMurray, who has his hands full of Conrad Grunwald. I think McMurray actually just made that pass, excuse me, so that should be a change of position there. Here we go, Ryan Dial, Drew Stavely side by side.
There are battles everywhere right now. Pretty much wide open through here. Who's going to be latest on the brakes here? Stavely has the inside line. Dial decides to give it up, try and do the crisscross here coming off, but tires are relatively good right now, so you can pretty much run wherever you want with the downforce that these cars have.
Stout defense from Drew Stavely, and all of this happening just out the windshield of the overall leader as well. Jordan Pepper has the best seat in the house for this scrap that is down in the running order, but not lacking in ferocity between Drew Stavely, 6th in Pro-Am, Ryan Dial currently 7th.
Yeah, Pepper would like to clear these cars and just run his own pace here, but he's got to be careful, doesn't want to throw it all away. Not at the point in this race yet that the points are guaranteed in terms of the percentage of the race distance. I think that's almost a reminder that you need to set. Like if you're a strategist, you need to have that line in the sand as to when you can be a bit more aggressive and you know that the points are secure.
Right, and that comes in 70% race distance. If you reach that, even if you fail to finish, you still score points wherever you shake out in the finishing order. If you are anything less than 70% of race distance, there are no points scored. You are not classified, and we've seen that affect the championship in a number of respects. As Pepper takes a peek up the inside of Dial, has to back out of it. Ryan shut the door rather rudely in his face, it must be said, but Ryan's got his quarry out his windshield as well, and that's a battle for position. He's not going to want to be separated from Drew Stavely if he can avoid it.
Well, the other big picture thing is here, you want to stay on that lead lap. If there's a safety car that comes out for a yellow right now, they would pick up Pepper and effectively allow Ryan Dial, Stavely, and everyone else to close back up to the pack. So he'll be not too silly about this, but he'd love to keep that Lamborghini behind him for a few more minutes here and see if they catch a break.
Dennis Lind has been running some decent lap times, and that last lap he didn't make any ground up, but was close, and I don't think that Pepper really was encumbered for the bulk of that lap. So this will be an interesting one to keep an eye on. The longer Pepper stays behind, we'll see if that opens up the door. This is what led to the battle that we saw. So they had actually swapped positions briefly, and oh, that was not too polite.
No, I think that was cool. I think it was just good hard racing, but two tremendous races right there.
Yeah, hard to fault either of them, fighting for position and just running out of real estate there, rubbing on each other.
So let's see what Pepper does here. I mean, he'll be comfortable with this as long as the team has given him the information. Listen, even running at this pace, Lind is not cutting into that gap. But if he starts to hear, like you're 25 in front, you're 24, you're 23, then he'll be a bit more aggressive, I would feel.
Still 37.5 minutes to go. Ryan Dial, experienced rapid Scotsman in this Mercedes for DXDT Racing.
Look at that Lamborghini is really hooked up. That kind of more shallow line through turn 17. So you talk about the theoretical race line through a corner, all of that goes out of the window on corners like 17, as wherever your car is set up to avoid the bumps or, you know, feel the grip. You draw it on paper, it might not look like the best way through a corner, but if it's working for you, that's what you have to go for.
Gosh, just looking at these cars bouncing over the bumps in the road. And we talked about it a little bit during qualifying. Every once in a while, a neophyte will say, well, if it's so bumpy, why don't you pave it? But Sebring and the bumps are synonymous. It's part of the charm, and the drivers love the challenge.
Pepper here, just sitting there, flashing the lights, looking at the inside, but he's not going to try anything too desperate. He's just trying to get Dial a little bit off his game. Looks like Dial's car is sliding a little bit, so it's a team that tested here. K-Pax did not, DXDT did for a couple of days, and now Ryan's going to give it up. Good respect there. I mean, I'll say that. I don't think Pepper's too happy with him, or he just misjudged that. It was a little glancing blow on the right front fender.
I thought he had the hand out the window to say thanks.
Yeah.
It just seemed like a miscommunication.
Yeah, bump. Either way, I think Ryan's going to say, what the heck, I just gave you the position and then you run into me.
Well, Jordan Pepper does make that pass, and now Dial will try to latch on. Pepper Runs up on Drew Stavely next.
Stavely's having a good run here.
Yep.
When you look at his fastest lap of the day at 2:03.5, Lind, or that car, the 9 car's fastest lap is 2:03.1, so puts in a perspective that they're maybe starting to get on top of the setup of that Aston Martin, and it's showing in terms of their lap times, because Frank had a great opening stint as well.
Well, that fast lap you mentioned was the last one for Drew Stavely. It was a personal best, 2:03.533. The cars that are on the move, though, continue to be Jan Heylen and Dakota Dickerson, who are running sub 2:02 lap times within a tenth or a two of each other. Dickerson's not gaining on Jan Heylen, but those two together are slowly chipping away at Dennis Lind, who's still running in the 2:03s.
I'll tell you what, those first few corners when Jan Heylen got on the racetrack are really the difference right now, because they came out of pit lane, within a couple of car lengths, and Heylen just got on the mat and drove away for that first half lap, and now it's kind of stabilized there. Otherwise, Dickerson could really be putting him under pressure.
From the Windward camp, we understand that they are headed back out onto the racetrack. That would be good news for them. Whether or not they have enough time to make it to the 70% distance, I'll let someone who's a bit sharper on the math front try and make that calculation, but certainly a chance to go do some testing here is valuable ahead of race 2 tomorrow. This is the M-Class leader, by the way, Triarsi Competizione, with Onofrio Triarsi behind the wheel. Not a bad debut at all for this team here on home turf.
Easy for you to say. That's quite the little mouthful there, but you pulled it off.
I went by and I practiced with Onofrio. We went through it a few times to make sure we were ready for this.
You put it under your pillow last night?
May have. Not giving away industry secrets, Calvin. 33 minutes to go. This is your overall leader, Jordan Pepper, trying to put a lap on Drew Stavely, who continues to run some nice lap times. That time within 0.06 of a second of his personal best. So throwing two really good ones back to back.
Yeah, I mean, his fastest lap was only 0.7 off Pepper's best lap. So it's not a walk in the park here dealing with this traffic for Jordan Pepper.
And just needs to be patient, not put the car at risk. And the ultimate goal is that championship.
This is where that Lamborghini, look at the line that he can run through there. He's just tucking it to the inside. It seems like he's found a little bit of a secret in terms of missing some of the bigger bumps and not really losing much speed through that corner by doing it that way. If you run that outside line, it seems like the car is just gradually getting away from you as you kind of bounce through the corner. He's found a much smoother line there.
Just amazing watching these high-strung GT3 cars bounding over the bumps around this racetrack, and some of the high-speed corners are the bumpiest, with turn 17 and turn 1. I've always wondered what you feel through the steering column, through the seat. It can't be comfortable.
You feel a lot through the seat from both directions because it's a tweaker, let me put it that way. Turn 1, just the fact that it's blind, you have to commit to the line. You can't see through the corner. You have to commit to the power, the rolling speed, and then you hope that you get to those big bumps that we saw Michael Cooper have his ride on, with the car in the right attitude and pointing in the right direction. And turn 17 is always an adventure, it seems.
Corey Lewis trying to come back through the field in the green Lamborghini, K-Pax Racing number 6. He's now running 6th overall behind Madison Snow, who is 3rd in Pro-Am.
Lewis's fast lap, 2:02.5, and Snow's running some good laps here, low 2:03s. So Zalu's car has shown up strong here this weekend.
They have, and again, this is a really young team without a ton of experience, and I think they'll be leaning on Madison here to lead the way, given the success he's had in Lamborghinis at the 12-hour in the past.
Yeah, I know when I spoke to him early in the season, I believe it was at Coda, he said, I'm really having to lead the charge from the technical side. So he certainly has a ton of experience working with great engineers. Longtime teammate has been Brian Sellers, of course. He's one of the best in the business. So all part of that mentoring that the team and Brian has given to Madison to kind of assume this role, which I think is invigorating for him, is stepping out of his box a little bit and making him make the big decisions maybe.
And comes from a great racing family too, Madison Snow.
Yeah, both his mother and father, Melanie and His dad certainly have had a ton of success.
Exactly so, in a number of different cars for many, many years.
Martin is his dad, so they live and breathe it just like their son does in terms of running these races. Look at this battle. Dakota Dickerson, he is the real deal, let me tell you. To hang on to Jan Halen at this stage of his career, and you being so young in the early stages, and it looks to me like he's closing the gap.
He is. He's trimmed off about 0.2 of a second each lap, each of the last few laps. There's some comparisons for you on the screen. And yes, indeed, that Acura is getting closer by the lap. And that's an important pass for his co-driver, Taylor Hagler, who's trying to win the Pro-Am Championship. It's a tall order, but really it gets that much more difficult if they're finishing behind Jan Halen and Fred Fordad, because that's who they are chasing.
Well, the key is to keep it within 50 points heading to Indy. So they had a 58-point deficit coming in here. So you don't want to afford to let that blow out. So if they can get in front of this car, it's a 7-point swing. That would cut it down to 51. And then if they finish in front of the 20 at any position in this field inside the top 10 where you score points tomorrow, that would mean they're inside that 50-point swing going to Indianapolis, where there's double points on the line. You got to get to that distance where you're going to score points in a 3-hour event, not a 90-minute event. So, and a ton of cars there.
Yes.
Multi-class racing, anything can happen. We saw some crazy weather with rain on the opening lap there last year. A lot of the drivers on slick tires, so it is game on.
Yeah, well, if you enter that race mathematically still in play, I think there are a number of scenarios you could envision where you can snag a championship in the final race of the season. And the fact that we expect a huge grid, especially in the Pro-Am ranks, there will be a good number of pro cars, but the Pro-Am class is looking very stout as well. And that presents opportunity, both good and ill, headed into the final race of the year.
Makes it fun for us and everyone who's going to tune in, so do so. 2 weeks today. Tomorrow.
Yes, it is. There is some live telemetry thanks to the folks at AWS. Looking at speed, gearing, throttle as well.
The speed, and watch the apex speed through here. Just above 100. That is big commitment.
No runoff to speak of either.
No, you can do some major damage on the exit of that corner. Speaking of damage, we see turn 3 named after Tom Christensen. On his debut here, he tells a funny story in his new book, Mr. Lamar, where on his debut with the Audi squad here, he lost it under braking there, plowed the car into the tire barrier, kind of pushing his way out, and as he pushed all the tires away, who does he see? Dr. Ulrich, the head boss for Audi Sport, who's standing down into the corner to watch qualifying. So not the most auspicious start to his Audi career, but he certainly made up for it over the years.
Yeah, it turned around pretty fast for him. It seems like everywhere he raced, he had success with that Audi program. And one of the legends of the sport. There's a reason that turn 3 is named after him. The impact he's had in global sports car racing, but here at Sebring for sure. And what a future lies ahead of Dakota Dickerson. This is another one of those guys. Jan Halen almost fits into this category too, although he did make it to Indy cars. But open wheel racing's loss was sports car racing's gain with Jan Halen. And Dakota Dickerson, I think, still has aspirations to be a single-seater driver, but this might be where the opportunities come from on the sports car side. And performances like these will get team owners' attention when you are running 10th for 10th with one of the best in the business.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a great benchmark in terms of having someone who's so established and recognized being as so fast as Jan Halen. So you'd love to get around him and really sort of like put the stamp on the envelope here and send it. But even so, just these are the type of performances that he seems to do on a consistent basis that, as you say, is going to get teams and manufacturers' attention.
And most impressively is it's not like he's in this car each and every week. He's only running half of the races, splitting this seat with Jacob Abel. There's big gaps between the races that he does. He's not out testing the car. So he's doing a lot of learning on the fly without having back-to-back races to apply those lessons to. And what will be fun is watching this car in the 8-hour when you have Taylor Hagler as fast as she's been. And then you throw Jacob Abel and Dakota Dickerson in that car together. The three of them, I think, will make for a fascinating lineup.
Well, it was the picture going in, or the story going in, is like, let these drivers establish themselves, get the confidence, and graduate up to this level. And all three of them have done that. You know, they've come in and they've got stronger every single weekend, and that's going to really showcase itself well at the finale at Indy.
Corey Lewis has made the pass on Madison Snow. That is for 5th overall, not a change of class position. Corey running 3rd in the pro class, quite a ways back of Dennis Lind at this stage, but all things considered, a pretty good recovery considering they had to pit for a puncture early in this race that set them back in a big way.
Yeah, but to keep this championship alive, they got to get up to 2nd, and the guy who has 2nd right now, Dennis Lind, is a long way down the road, so I think it should seal the title for the 3-car if they finish as they run right now. This battle has been super intense. Looked like Dakota was trimming about a 1/10 of a second per lap there, but he had a little bobble there on that lap and may have lost a little bit of time. The gap looks like it's stretched possibly. 1.15 seconds coming across the line the last time, but may have lost a little bit here.
Proudly looking on at the development of his drivers, graduates of the HPD GT3 Academy. John Meraki from Racer's Edge is with Amanda.
You're exactly right, Ryan. Every time we walk by here, you can always see John with a smile on as he looks on at his drivers. We were talking about Dakota Dickerson and just how impressive he is, only spending half of the races here for the season. What impresses you about the young driver?
Well, for the very least, I mean, his talent, that's obvious. I mean, he has incredible talent, but he's like the best student you could imagine. He works really hard at the materials, studying the data. He talks to the coaches, he absorbs the information, and he's very hard on himself. He's a good critic of himself, which is really useful. He has good sense of when he makes a mistake, and he's able to sort of evaluate that and make corrections.
When you see him going against battles, against veterans like a Jan Halen, what pride does that give you?
Oh, I can't even express that. It's just, I'm speechless. I mean, I know Jan real well, and he's a world-class driver. So even to be running with him and matching his pace, like at Road America where he held him off for the half of the race, it's just amazing. I'm just beyond pride. That's all I can say.
Ryan, I think you're right. Safe to say that John's super proud of his drivers here.
Definitely. And talking to him before the season, this is the team that dominated the championship last year with Shelby Blackstock and Trent Hidman. And John was the first to say we need to recalibrate our expectations this year. Young drivers, talented but inexperienced, but we think there's some promise there. And we've seen them tap into that promise as the year has gone on.
It's been the perfect progression, really. I mean, didn't make any big errors early in the season. Gradually got that confidence, increased seat time, coming to racetracks that maybe some of the drivers have experienced before. And then you get days like this where you get that carrot in front of you, a very experienced Jan Halen, and Dakota Dickerson has got up on the wheel. Lost a little bit here the last couple of laps, but nonetheless, super impressive performance.
2018 F4 US champion. 2019 he won what is now known as Formula Regional Americas. It's the US F3 championship with 5 wins in that season. Last year did some prototype racing, filled in for Taylor Hagler actually in a touring car race at one point in the year and was part of that GT3 Academy. See why he is so well thought after. And I thought it was interesting, John Meraki talking about Dakota as such a great student. By all accounts, he's a good teacher as well, because when Jimmy Johnson wanted to make his transition to IndyCar, he went and tested an F3 car, and his coach was Dakota Dickerson.
How cool is that?
How wild would that be to be Dakota
crazy.
Dickerson, 24 years old, coaching a 7-time NASCAR champion?
Just amazing. Yeah, but I think he has a head on his shoulders to just deal with that sort of opportunity well. He just seems like a really smart young man and stellar behind the wheel. And I'm looking forward to tomorrow when these two drivers start this race from the front of the pack, or towards the front of the pack, Halen on the pole, of course. But looking at their lap times, Jan Halen a 2:01.53, Dickerson a 2:01.73, compared to Pepper and Caldarelli's best laps in the 2:02.7 range. So that's significant. I mean, they could literally grab the front running positions and take off a little bit from the K-Pax squad. But, you know, that team are not going to sit still. They may get a bit more aggressive if the championship has already been tied up tomorrow with their setups and stuff.
Well, what a year it's been for this car, and if they do find themselves in a position to put it away, and you have to commend K-Pax Racing making the switch from Bentley. And they were running the Bentleys for the last few years, and I'm not sure there's a bigger transition from GT3 car manufacturer to GT3 car manufacturer than going from a Bentley to a Lamborghini, but they have not missed a beat. Having big-time talent like Andrea Caldarelli, Lamborghini factory driver, and a talent like Jordan Pepper, who was also new to Lamborghini, but his racing resume over the last few years is about as good as it gets. That definitely helps propel them forward, but you know, I did wonder if there might be a bit of a learning curve, and it did not appear to be the case. They rolled off and dominated Sonoma and have not looked back since.
Yeah, I mean, not unexpected, right? But, you know, nonetheless, when you look at their results over the years, they came into this championship season, K-Pax as a squad did, with 59 wins under their belt, 148 podiums and 4 championships. Well, those numbers have just been blown out of the water. I think this will be their 9th win on the year with a single victory for the 6 car, and this will be the 8th for the 3 car if they can bring it home here with just over 19 minutes to go. So I think we've been looking for which team is going to break through and really challenge them, and we've seen it on occasion with the 96 car from Turner Motorsports. Only the 33 car has been strong this year, and we saw even the 9 car yesterday in practice and a little bit in the race today. I think they've got to regroup a bit here tonight and maybe adjust to this racetrack, which has given you a different grip level to the previous 2 days of testing. See if they can come back a bit stronger tomorrow as well.
The thing that amazes me about K-Pax, and maybe makes me rethink even considering there might be a learning curve, can you think of another team that has campaigned so many different cars over the course of their history and had success? Everything from Volvo to Porsche to McLaren, Bentley, Lamborghini. I'm probably forgetting some, but that's about as diverse of a portfolio as you could think of. GMG comes to mind. They've run just about everything under the sun, but there's not many that have bounced around as much as they have and been successful every step of the way.
Yeah, different classes. I was going to put real-time in that lane,
sure,
but they've done it all with the Acura Honda brand, whereas, as you said, K-Pax have switched around to various manufacturers, but here we see that gap suddenly has got closer. So I'm not sure if Jan Halen had a bad lap there, but lost half a second to Dakota Dickerson. So that gap that was right about 1.1, it got back up to 1.7, is now down to 0.7. This is as close as it's been all day long.
Super impressed with Dakota Dickerson. Not much more to say beyond what we've said already, but he has reeled in Jan Halen and appears to be getting stronger and stronger as the race has progressed, making the run through Big Bend. Now the drag race down to turn 7, the hairpin. Heavy braking zone here for this right-hander, which leads to turns 8 and 9, known as Fangio, down to turn 10.
Just great flow through this sector here, wide open. And you're going to get on the binders here for turn 10. And this will change the game a little bit if Dakota Dickerson can get a little bit closer to Jan Halen, really start to put the pressure on.
Dickerson on the season has only finished off the podium once. That was the second race of the weekend at Road America, where they did start on pole and had some heartbreak late in that race, but a pair of thirds to start the year alongside Taylor Hagler back at Sonoma, then was out of the car until Road America. They won race 1 there, and now after it was Jacob Abel's turn to fill that seat at Watkins Glen the last time out, Dakota Dickerson back in the car and in position for a podium, but not too far ahead is the potential for a race win, and he is pushing Jan Halen down the Ullman Straight.
Tell you what, they're catching Lind as well. I mean, Lind's only 6 seconds down the road now, so this would be interesting if they do catch Lind. Lind doesn't want to give it up, even though it's not for class position. That could open the door for Dickerson to maybe make something happen if there's like a compression between these 3 cars.
This is the best battle on the racetrack. Drew Stavely still fending off Ryan Dial. About a second and a half between those two at last check. Ooh, that was Lind kicking up dust, I assume. Able to gather it back in, though. Scary moment there, though, for the Dane making his debut. We heard from him earlier. Let's take a look at the replay, see what we see.
Oh, yeah, he's wide all the way through. That's a big catch. That is a big catch. Oh, boy. Oh, Andy, I thought it was dust on the right side tire. It was actually the blue marking off that banner board, I believe, because as he turned in, I thought, well, there it is. You can see it, look. That's where he clipped that sign coming through turn one. So that certainly gave Jan Halen a bit of a scare because he came through that corner a little bit unsighted with the dust still flying. You see him kind of come through and end up in the middle of the road because you can't see the edge of the road. You tend to get a little bit conservative there in terms of completing the radius of the corner. So I think this is game on. With the amount of time on the board, they are going to catch Lind, who seems to be struggling a bit for grip here. And that may open up the door for Dakota Dickerson, as I said.
Dennis Lind is currently leading the GT3 points in British GT, along with Leo Bachitsky driving for Barwell. Has a lot of experience running in Lamborghinis, former Lamborghini factory driver. Drove for Audi the 24 Hours of Spa earlier this year, and as Amanda chronicled when we spoke to him earlier, got the call that, hey, you're headed to Sebring just over a week ago. Not much time to get prepared, but the good news is he has raced here before in Lamborghini Super Trofeo competition and had some success.
Need to draw on every ounce of that right now because he's going to feel the pressure here shortly. She just really lays down the power very, very well. A couple of the corners, it looks like to me like Jan's maybe got a little bit of understeer in the car where the front end is not wanting to turn through the corner like you exactly want it to. But the rear end seems well planted.
Dickerson just chopped off another 0.3 of a second on that lap. He has the gap down to 0.6 of a second, but now becomes the hard part because you're going to be following close. You have the disturbed air coming off of the car in front. These GT3 cars very much dependent on aerodynamics to make their speed, and we've seen it time and time again. Catching, yep, you can do that, but making that final half second up where you're close enough to make a move, that is where it gets very difficult.
It's also difficult when you got a new competitor in front of you for like Jan Halen. I'm not sure if he's ever raced against Dennis Lind before. I probably would suspect not. So if their paths have crossed somewhere before, but I don't think so. So he's going to be coming up on him, not knowing what to expect. He's trying to hang on here for another class victory. They'll be their third on the year and get ever closer to sealing the championship title. And he's got to deal with a driver who's maybe not come across before on the racetrack.
That'd be true to some degree of Dakota Dickerson also. I think the two raced against one another at Road America, if memory serves. And perhaps even earlier than that in the season at Sonoma, now that I think about it. But that's still not a whole lot to go back to in terms of knowing what to expect from the driver you're sparring with.
Porsche seems to be a little bit more flat, not as edgy as Dakota's car is at this end of the stint, but it doesn't seem to be showing up any difference in lap time. Dakota is just hanging with him. The tire squeal from the camera outside the racetrack there. Picking up those squeaks and chirps as they're coming through the corners.
That turn 17, similar to turn 1 that we're coming up to now. High speed, long duration corner. That really takes its toll on a tire.
It does, particularly when you're skipping, because you're just really working that tire. So Jan there just meant to turn in and point a little bit. I think he's just dealing with the front end issue maybe later in the going here.
AM class leader, Onofrio Triarsi behind the wheel. 9th overall. It's been a really strong run for them in their series debut, giving chase to Matt McMurray, who runs 5th in Pro-Am, 8th overall. Second place in AM is Conrad Grunwald, who runs 11 seconds behind, and Conrad's been running some good lap times. About a second and a half on the last lap, faster than Onofrio Triarsi was. But I'm not sure he's got enough time to make up the difference with just 11 minutes remaining.
Could they be seeing their first defeat of the year for the number 61 car? Yeah, of course, a Grunwald machine with JC Sada. So Triassi just needs to hang on here. Time is on his side. About a 10-second gap, 11-second gap over Grunwald, but Grunwald is on the charge.
Here we go. This is second, third, and fourth overall, with second in Pro, and then the top two in Pro-Am giving chase, all coming together here in the back half of the lap at Sebring. Dennis Lind, Jan Halen, Dakota Dickerson.
This is where Dakota needs to get real close, and if Jan Halen gets balked any, maybe he can fire it.
Jan Halen sitting in the slipstream. Wright Motorsports Porsche, that's the Wright crew on the top right-hand side of the screen. They've been in a number of these battles in Sebring over the years, coming down to the end of 12 hours. This one just 90 minutes in duration, but it's been fierce. They've got a chance for second overall and the Pro-Am lead, but Dakota Dickerson has other ideas.
Yeah, for Jan Halen, if he can pounce, sometimes it's the best time. Right as you get to them, just have that momentum and go. Get stalled out a little bit, as we said, with the GT3 cars, you get that aero wash, you lose a little bit of performance. Jan Halen thinks about it, looks to the inside, not close enough, too risky.
Drop part of the wheel. Oh, big twitch out of Jan Halen.
Yeah, try to squeeze on the power there to get closer to the Lamborghini. That cost him big time. Now he's going to have to defend from Dakota here on the run down to turn 7.
Here comes the Acura. Here comes Racer's Edge. Dakota Dickerson charging on the veteran Jan Halen. Halen goes defensive. Dickerson back to the outside now. Late on the brakes for the hairpin. Can't get alongside, or can he? Not close enough. Has to fall back in line, but that's the biggest challenge we've seen to the Pro-Am lead all race long.
This is awesome stuff, and this is what I was hoping for and anticipating maybe that this would create that little compression between these three cars and give some opportunity for Dickerson.
What can the youngster do? In just his 5th GT3 start, Dakota Dickerson hounding the veteran Jan Halen.
Yeah, to get by Lind, that may seal it, but getting by is not going to be easy. He doesn't want to give it up. Lind doesn't want to give it up. But you could see there when Jan Halen asked for a little bit more, just tightening his hands, going to power a little bit earlier, suddenly those rear tires gave up on him.
Turn 15, into the run to turn 16, known as Le Mans, onto the Ullman straight. Crucial corner here to get the power down and get a nice run down this long straightaway. Looks like Jan Halen was able to do just that. Gave himself just enough breathing room to the point where now he is the aggressor, taking a look to the inside of Dennis Lind. Pokes a nose to the inside.
Will he send it? Thinks about it. Looks like he's a bit later to the brake pedal, but Lind was just rolling speed there through the entry.
Jan Halen's a driver who needs no second invitation. If the door is open, you'll often see him go charging through. Hopefully the team has told that to Dennis Lind, as here comes Jan Halen to the inside, gets up to the flank, but unable to stay up alongside.
And he's late to power. Here comes Dickerson with a big run.
Dakota Dickerson to the outside. Halen throws the block. Defensive here on the run to turn number 3. Dickerson trying to cross him over.
And that's exactly the dynamic you're going to see when you get that car in front of you. Jan Halen trying to set him up, couldn't make it work, and suddenly Dakota has the opportunity.
It's not over yet, though. Dakota got a great run through here the last time. The right-hander of Big Bend down to the braking zone of turn 7. Once again, Dickerson forced to go the long way around. This time not close enough to draw alongside. Trying to get the power down on the exit of the hairpin through the run through Fangio.
The ultimate master versus the student right now in terms of the experience levels that we're looking at between the 20 and the 93 machine.
Championship implications as well. The top 2 in Pro-Am points. 1-2 in the running order in class here in the race. Dakota Dickerson's co-driver, the full season driver for Racer's Edge, Taylor Hagler, desperately needs Dakota to get this pass made to gain a couple of points. The swing is 7 if they can get around the Wright Motorsports Porsche.
Yeah, and that's a 14-point swing. Ultimately, you're taking 7 away and gaining 7, so this is massive. Halen looks to the inside. It's not going to happen there without a bit of assistance from the car you're trying to get by. Jan Halen really putting the pressure on. Dakota needs to set this one up. Can he do it? Can he get the run?
Lind slipped up, and that's going to hold up Halen. Here comes Dakota Dickerson. Now, Haylen going to the inside down the back straightaway. Dickerson staying right there in line. Two cars look as one. Whoa, that's a big move from Dennis Lind. Headed to Sunset Bend. It's almost 3 wide on entry.
Dickerson sends it around the outside, doesn't have anywhere to go with it. He's got to try and do the crisscross back under him onto this front stretch.
Somehow Dennis Lind remained out in front, but his travails aren't over yet. Jan Haylen to the outside, making the run down the pit straight. He'll be side by side on entry to turn 1. They almost come together.
This one could end up in tears. Dakota's got another big run as they exit turn 1. He's going to get alongside Haylen.
Oh, Haylen doesn't like that one bit and chops off the nose of the NSX. Hard into the brakes there.
What a motor race this is turning into.
Jordan Pepper leads by 35 seconds, but the fight for second, third, and fourth is this one, and boy, is it a good one. Dennis Lind, Jan Haylen, Dakota Dickerson with 5 minutes remaining.
Dennis Lind does not want to give up that position either, and if it's only an overall position and not a class potential change. Jan Haylen not close enough there on the brake zone to turn 7. And everyone regrouping a little bit.
And once again,
catching their breath.
Once again, that's costing Jan Haylen. He wants to make that move, he can't get around, and he doesn't get the exit he's looking for.
Just trying to settle in, maybe let Lind get back into a rhythm where he's not being so defensive, and then he could maybe surprise him, lull him into a false sense of security here.
Tense moments in the Racer's Edge garage. It's Taylor Hagler in the middle. Oh, big slide on exit for Dakota Dickerson. He had that thing sideways. Fred Pordad watching on. He's Jan Haylen's co-driver. Put that car on the class pole and had a great stint to start the race.
Both the co-drivers look pretty cool there, don't they? Dakota's doing a great job as Taylor looks on, and Fred Pordad, he's got the shades on. Maybe that's hiding the emotion a little bit right now.
When you know what kind of talent you're turning the car over, it's easy to look cool up on the pit box. That's true of all 3 of these cars. Dennis Lind, Jan Haylen, and Dakota Dickerson, the star in the making at the tail end of this train.
Just see slightly different approaches. Jan Haylen gets to the inside. This is going to create another fight down to turn 1. They're going to be side by side. If Haylen can't make this move, Dakota needs to set this one up, get to the outside, and just really roll big speed through the apex. They're fighting it out. Lind will not give it up.
This time Haylen will try the crossover. Can he get underneath Lind on corner exit? He cannot. Dickerson is close, but not close enough. And again, Haylen, combination of being defensive and aggressive there, trying to find a way past that Lamborghini while keeping the NSX in the rearview mirror.
Smart driving there by Jan Haylen. He didn't fight it any harder than we saw right there. I think if he had, he could have lost that position. He recognized, listen, Lind doesn't want to give it to me. If I keep fighting like this, it's going to open up the door once again.
Into the hairpin now, and for what it's worth, at the line, Haylen had that spot by 6 thousandths of a second, so he knows what he needs to do to win the drag race on the final lap if it comes down to that.
You could cut and paste that move, that would give it to you. Oh, this is going to be tricky. Look at this, Dickerson to the outside. Can he roll the outside speed? What a move! Can he make it stick? Will Haylen give him the room? No.
Just up and over the curb, and Dickerson had to save it. There on corner exit, that costs him dearly, and he has to regather it to try and go on the attack again.
I love the racecraft, though. Really great idea to like stick it down to the outside and try and use the Lamborghini as a pick on Haylen. Haylen crafty enough and savvy enough not to let it happen without being too aggressive and creating contact. Good, respectful driving, but super, super hard.
Looks like strife for the Michael Cooper-driven DXDT racing car, currently blocking the entry to the pit lane in at least partially, but we stay green for now. Heartbreak, though, for Cooper and Aaron Vogel. 2 minutes left. I don't know when Jordan Pepper crossed the line. He's 35 seconds or so ahead of these guys, so there might still be 2 laps remaining.
I think there are. Yeah, there's going to be 2 laps to go. Pepper's going to, I don't think he's going to beat the clock back, so he's going to come back around, and then Jordan Pepper will get the white flag. But for these drivers, 2 more laps to go. Look at this crazy stuff. What can Dakota Dickerson do with it this time? This slower apex, he's got rolling speed. Big, big momentum.
He's been close here before, Calvin. Dakota Dickerson stalking Jan Haylen, who in turn is stalking the newcomer, Dennis Lind.
I think this has almost taken the sharpness off the fight for Jan Halen, because he knows if he gets super aggressive, he's just going to balk both of these cars and give Dakota Dickerson the run.
Well, and as much as Jan Halen would love to take that spot, remember, it's not for class position, and as long as he can finish ahead of the NSX, that's good for them in points. But here comes Dickerson, late on the brakes. Oh, too late on the brakes. He can't get it wound up. Uses the old hairpin and will rejoin the fray, but well behind Jan Halen, who's now been turned loose to go off in hot pursuit of Dennis Lind.
Yeah, he sent it okay, but you just hit those bumps that we've been talking about into that brake zone, and it just sends the car into the ABS mode, and you just can't get it slowed down. And obviously you can't turn for the corner either, so he was smart enough to recognize that, try and minimize the damage, but you can see he's out of the picture now.
Well, he gave it all he had. No shame in making the attempt. And now we'll look to regroup, and who knows what's going to happen between these two. I think the tempers are heating up a little bit between Dennis Lind and Jan Halen.
Yep, and he's got to fight that battle into turn one for this final time and see if he can hang on here.
Hey, you remember race one at Watkins Glen? Jan Halen trying to get by Giacomo Altoe? He was trapped behind this exact same Lamborghini for his entire stint in that race, and as we've learned, past is prologue.
See what happens here. Doesn't have to think about what's happening behind him now. Dakota's out of the picture at this stage of the game, so he's just got to focus on setting up Lind. And he can afford to be more aggressive down into turn one. But again, how much do you want to throw away this potential race win and the championship clincher?
White flag flies above the battle for second. I don't know what the stewards are going to think of that one. Dennis Lind very defensive down the front straightaway. Halen has to back out of it. Discretion, the better part of valor for him, because they're in a position to move that much closer to clinching the Pro-Am championship. The pass would not affect that in any way.
The key there on the replay they'll be looking at, was he proactive? Did he start to move just before Jan Halen? He can continue the move, but if Jan Halen's already started the move and you do that sort of move, that will get the ire of the race director.
I will leave it to them to sort that out. After the race is done, Jan Halen would like to take that spot away, if at all possible, through the hairpin for the final time.
And Lind is definitely backing up these cars, and to the point, if there's another lap or two, I think Dakota could have enough car and speed to catch them back up again.
Halen took a peek to the inside. Close enough.
Fabulous battle, though. I'm not sure what Jan Halen's going to be thinking about this in terms of a car that's not in the same class. But that's what makes these guys so great. They're racers through and through, and even though it's not for a class position, they still want to beat the man in front of them.
It's still a car to pass, isn't it? Well, no worries about passing cars for this car. Jordan Pepper, Andrea Caldarelli take the checkered flag. Race one in Sebring belongs to K-Pax Racing. Big congratulations there. Andrea Caldarelli up on the wall. What a team he and Jordan Pepper have turned into.
I think unofficially, mate, that may have sealed it. Get the sister car off the podium, the 33 car. Not scoring points here today.
Sister car, I think, will come in third.
They had to finish second and car won.
Okay. Here's the final run to the checkers. Dennis Lind able to fend off Jan Halen by what? 18 hundredths of a second. And Dakota Dickerson, less than a second behind, comes home second in Pro-Am, but what a fight he put up. There's the celebration, though, with K-Pax. I think you might be onto something. They might know it's mission accomplished, with still one normal distance race left to go tomorrow, and then the first 3 hours of the 8-hour in 2 weeks' time that pay the final 50 points to the winner towards the Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS Championship. Further back, Corey Lewis has crossed the line, third in Pro, fifth overall.
Pretty sure that's a 76-point gap that creates between the 3 and the 6, and 75 points potentially left on the board.
Jan Halen with the CrowdStrike fastest lap of the race. Let's head down to a jubilant pit lane where we find Amanda Busick.
Oh, and the team was celebrating behind us, and it is their math as well. 76 points will give them the championship. And Andrea, as I said earlier, talking to Jordan, you guys came into this season, hadn't even seen a lot of these tracks here in the U.S. What made your efforts so dominant?
Well, I mean, I think teamwork is definitely the answer. Everything was new for us, for the team, so we didn't expect to start so good at the beginning, but I think we worked so hard, and such a big effort from the team, from Lamborghini, to put such a strong package. And you know, it was quite tough when you don't know the tracks and you come just free practice and straight in quali. But at the end of the day, you know, when you have such a good team spirit and such a good team behind it, that's what makes it happen.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And confirmation from the series: Drivers' Championship, Teams' Championship, Manufacturers' Championship clinched for Pepper, Caldarelli, K-Pax Racing, and Lamborghini, respectively.
Nice. Nice. It's a fun way to go racing tomorrow, because they're going to have a big challenge on their hand with the 20 car and the 93 at the start of the race anyway.
Definitely so. I hope we're in store for another duel like the one we saw in the final 15 minutes of that one. I'm still catching my breath. Not sure that all the drivers are going to have enjoyed it as much as we did, but it was a great show. Dennis Lind, Jan Heylen, Dakota Dickerson, with some of the closest GT3 racing you will find anywhere. Provisional finishing results: Caldarelli and Pepper for the 8th time this year, and that's enough to clinch a championship. They win not just in class but overall, ahead of Dennis Lind and Giacomo Alto. A pretty strong debut in the pro class, it must be said, for TR3 Racing in this Lamborghini, guys. They've done it before with Ferrari equipment. Wright Motorsports on the overall podium with Fred Pordad, as well as Jan Heylen, and the win, crucially, in Pro-Am, just ahead of their closest pursuers in the championship, Taylor Hagler, Racers Edge Motorsports. What a ride Dakota Dickerson gave to that car. And K-Pax, Zalus, Compass, and a great debut for the Triarci team, who ended up holding on by just a couple of seconds over the hard-charging Conrad Grunwald of AF Corsa. The first time they have not won their class this season, and an impressive debut for a new team.
Really cool, really cool. Good to see some more Ram cars in the mix. We expect maybe some more for next year. So, you know, Ferrari's very strong here in that class, of course, but great debut for that team. They did a really solid job. Nice qualifying run this morning, and put it to bed this afternoon.
Excited to see what they can do in race 2 coming up tomorrow. Well, that was a non-stop 90 minutes of action. It's been a long time since this championship was racing here in Sebring, since 2009, and I'm happy to report we won't have to wait nearly that long. We'll be back tomorrow, and then next year it's on the schedule once again, which is very good news indeed.
Boy, did that race come alive there. That was spectacular. We've seen some great racing this year, but those 10 minutes or so, whatever it was, that was some of the best we've seen all season.
Let's give a shout to Drew Stavely as well, who did hold off Ryan Dial through that entire stint. They crossed the line less than a second apart from one another. That was for 5th and 6th in Pro-Am. And for little Ian Lacey Racing, one of the smaller GT3 teams in the paddock, up against DXDT Racing, which has a lot of resources at its disposal. That is a really good result, albeit a ways down the ultimate running order. Let's look at the highlights from race 1 of the weekend, and it was a good start from the front row for K-Pax Racing. Jordan Pepper, Andrea Caldarelli, they controlled the race from there.
Some good racing going on. This is a moment in the middle of the race where Salas just got a little bit aggressive, unfortunately, on Jason Harwood, turned him around, got a penalty for that.
Good news, though, for Zalus is Harwood and Madison Snow recovered. They will stand on the podium for the first time this season with a third Pro-Am result here today. Some good battles between a couple of Lamborghini teams, and TR3 got the edge on K-Pax.
They did. Close moment here for Michael Cooper as the number 6 Lamborghini Huracan comes out of the pit lane. Michael goes for a ride. And Matt McMurray is a man on a charge here, cutting through the field. Another strong run for Compass Racing.
Able to recover from contact early and come up to 7th overall, 4th in class. This is that Ryan Dial, Drew Stavely battle. That's the closest Ryan got to taking that position, but Drew Stavely got it back with an aggressive move.
Cutting the grass at the same time. Put an invoice in for that one.
Staff at Sebring says, thanks very much, Drew. this was side by side for a couple of corners with the race leader in the background watching on. And then the battle that captivated us for the final 15 minutes. Dennis Lind, Jan Halen, Dakota Dickerson, hammer and tong. This was the big move around the outside. Dakota Dickerson, one of several he attempted actually. Almost got the job done, but just over the curb a bit too much. And at the front of the field, Jordan Pepper clinching the 8th win of the season and the Pro Championship for himself, the Team Championship for K-Pax Racing, and Manufacturers Championship for Lamborghini. What a season it's been for Jordan Pepper and Andrea Caldarelli, with yet another win, this time coming here at Sebring. Down to victory lane, and Amanda.
Oh, and it's been a celebration ever since we got here in Jordan on that last lap. You slowed down, you greet your team, you see Andrea up there cheering you on. A dream season for you guys, 8 wins here. What will you remember about your time here in GT World Challenge?
You know what, racing in America is just so cool. I love it. Everyone's so passionate. Like, sometimes emotions take over, like here a lot of the time, but you know, everyone's giving 120% from when you arrive at the track to when you leave back at the shop. So yeah, it's a stream season. It was a long 30 seconds until the number 9 crossed the line, and we knew we had enough of a gap. And yeah, it was just so awesome to see the whole crew on the fence. Andrea, everyone, like, it's just, yeah, I think it will be something we're going to celebrate tonight for sure. Maybe tomorrow's performance isn't going to be as good, but it's going to be worth it.
Well, I'll toss this up to whoever wants to answer it. You guys seem to have such chemistry together. How do you make each other better?
I'll let you go for it, man.
Playing golf together. We always have a ritual. We come to US and play golf before or after the race. But I mean, joke apart, it's, you know, I don't know, we just found each other this year, and we just seem to work very well together.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Both of these drivers with family members who've had a great deal of success in motorsports. For Jordan Pepper, his father was a touring car driver in South Africa. His sister Tasman raced in the W Series and some other series as well. And for Andrea Caldarelli, his brother-in-law is with Antonio Liuzzi, former F1 driver. So there's some good racing knowledge in that family. Here are the points, and you can see 76 points the difference. 75 points are left on offer in the remaining races, so championship clinched for Caldarelli and Pepper. Back to Amanda.
Well, the Pro-Am team of Jan Halen and Fred Portad continue to add points onto Taylor Haglard, who is in the 2nd position. And Fred, I sat next to you during that battle between your teammate and Dakota Dickerson. What was your heart rate during that?
You know, I think my heart rate was faster watching that segment than it was when I was in the car, which is never a good thing. I told Jan, man, don't do that again. I'm getting too old for this. You gotta give me a break up there. But that was really exciting, really amazing door-to-door racing. And no one better at driving this car than Jan Halen. So really an honor to be part of this team. And I want to thank Wright Motorsports for giving us the equipment to compete today. Wasn't, you know, necessarily our best performance overall, but, you know, we really had to work for it today. So very happy with the results.
Well, Jan, from a spectator standpoint, it was veteran versus rookie. Walk us through those laps and how that experience was for you.
Yeah, well, maybe a little too much excitement for my likings. I think a lot of it at the end was very unnecessary. Really good job by the Acura. The drivers, they did a really good job. I think they had maybe the better car in this race. But yeah, really disappointed in the driving of the Lamborghini. 2nd race in a row now, and you know, the young kids have a lot of learning to do as to how we race here in the US. So, but really happy with the points, and Fred did a good job, and just really happy for the team, for Wright Motorsports, and another good step towards the championship.
Well, some interesting comments from Jan Halen. On one hand, a huge compliment to Dakota Dickerson and Taylor Haglard. And on the flip side, as we expected, some frustration boiling over going back to Watkins Glen when he was battling with Giacomo Altoe and then here with Dennis Lind.
Well, I think the key is he didn't let it tip over into a point where he got too aggressive and tried to take out the car, because that can happen when you're that frustrated as he obviously is a few minutes after the checkered flag here, and he's had a chance to calm down some. Imagine what his emotion was like in the moment. So the fact that he kept it together and didn't get dirty to turn the Lamborghini around is really all of his experience was having to be drawn upon in that moment to not do something silly.
3rd win on the season for Portad and Halen helps to solidify that points lead. Still a little work left to be done, but certainly a big push in the right direction today. Taylor Hagler second in points after the second place result, and Matt McMurray, strong run to fourth today for him and Rodrigo Salas, and they're still third in points now, ahead of Askew and Dial going into the final couple of races of the season. Back down to Amanda.
Well, guys, it was 5 days ago that this effort kicked off, that Triarzi was going to race here in Sebring. And Onofrio, when you see that checkered flag and you get the win in the AM Cordy, is this what you drew up for yourself?
It was a great feeling. You know, it was very short notice. Crew did an amazing job getting everything ready. Sam put this whole thing together. Everybody worked really hard to make this happen last minute. My brother-in-law did an amazing job driving the car. We had a fabulous pit stop. Guys didn't make one mistake, and it was great to see the checker flag, and we're happy to be here.
Well, Charlie, as you told us, it was your first time in a competition in a race car like this since 2007. How did you adapt back so quickly?
Listen, it was a good team effort. The guys gave us a great car that was very stable, very neutral. So for me, it was getting some confidence, which fortunately was the case, and glad to be at the top spot. Considering that was 5 days ago, we weren't even considering doing the race, so very happy.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Had as good of a debut as you could dream up for Triarzi Competizione, picking up the win in the AM class, and they'll be battling it out with AF Corsa once again tomorrow. Exciting racing here today. We look forward to race 2 tomorrow here from Sebring International Raceway. So long for now.